Dan in Aurora, Colorado. Hey, Dan, you says you disagree with me. What's the disagreement?
Tom, I disagree with you. You say the only way to fix Citizens United is to amend the Constitution. And I would contend that that's too heavy of a lift, and it would take too long to allow the propaganda to go. So I'm going to give you an alternative.
Okay.
And basically, the Constitution only says there will be a Supreme Court, and then it's up to Congress to create that Supreme Court.
And regulate it.
Yes. And create and tell how it operates.
Right.
So I would say take over the Congress, get rid of the filibuster of the Senate, keep a Democratic president, and then have Congress go in and take the current Supreme Court and make them an inferior court, create a new Supreme Court above that with 15 justices, which would not be nominated for life, and it would be right in the law that establishes that it would contend that the way that we decide what is good behavior is that something like every presidential election, there will be a vote on whether that justice is observing good behavior in the way they approach their job.
Are you familiar, Dan, with the details of what Franklin Roosevelt proposed in 1937 with regard to the Supreme Court? I mean, okay.
Well, he was going to expand it. And of course,
he wasn't just going to expand it.
It changed several times over the years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it started out with, I think, 5, and then it went to 7, and went to 9. It's been up above 9.
It's 6, and then went to 5.
6 to, okay.
Then they came up with 9 somewhere around the Civil War.
Okay. So, in any case, what Franklin Roosevelt suggested was not expanding it numerically, keep it at 9, but that any justice who was over 70 years old, all of these 70-plus-year-old justices in aggregate would have one vote. They would be considered justices emeritus. And at the time there were, I believe, 4 justices who were over 70 on the court. And so that 4 votes becomes 1 vote, which means that there's 3 votes that are needed now. So you would add 3 people to the court. And that damn near passed. I mean, I read a book last year on this. I'm sorry, I can't remember the title or the author, but it was a fascinating read just about that point in time in history. And the author, who was a legal scholar, contended that had Roosevelt really, really decided to push that, he probably would have won. But the Nazis were starting to stir up Europe, and there was all kinds of things going on, and we'd had this kind of little second mini depression because Roosevelt pulled back on some of the New Deal programs, and he just decided it wasn't a battle that he wanted to fight. But you're right. That would be one way to do it, was to have Congress do it. But here, do you know how long it took from the time that the 26th Amendment, the one that says the voting age drops down to 18 from 21, how long it was from the time it was proposed in Congress until it was ratified?
I don't know the exact time, but I know it was a really short period.
Oh, yeah. It was proposed on March 23rd, and it was ratified on July 1st. So March, April, May, June, July. It took 4 months for that thing to get through 2/3 of the Senate and 3/4 of the House of the states. It took less than 4 months. And I think that if you've got popular will for something,
it was easy to get a lot of people behind, and
that's right. That's right. We need another Eva destruction song. Yeah, we need pop culture behind this. I mean, Barry, what's his name? The guy who's saying Eva of Destruction, he's the guy who basically, say what, Jim? Yeah, Barry Maguire. He's the guy who basically pushed that thing through with that song, in my opinion. And the other thing is, you know what an Article 5 convention is?
Is that the Congress where they get together?
An Article 5 convention is where you have individual states approve a constitutional amendment that has never been presented in the House of Representatives or the Senate. And when you hit 3/4 of the states, then it has to go to the Senate, and it can be passed, I believe, by a simple majority. It might require 2/3. I'd have to go back and read Article 5. But it's a reverse of the normal process. There's 2 ways you can have a constitutional convention. The first is Congress calls it, and they debate a constitutional convention. This is how the 13th, 14th, this is how in fact, all of the amendments, I believe, were passed. But the other way that is in the Constitution, this Article 5 convention, is where 3/4 of the states pass something, and then Congress has no choice but to take it up. And David Cobb, who runs MoveToAmend.org, is suggesting that an Article 5 convention might be the way to do it. If we can get individual states to start doing this, we can make it happen. I think that's more likely than that we're ever going to see in our lifetimes, given all the gerrymandering that's gone on, that 2/3 of the Senate and the White House are both going to be held by a Democrat. Although, after the crash in 2016...
Get rid of the filibuster, you don't need 2/3, you just need a majority in the Senate. If we were just...
Well, you need... Oh, I see, to regulate the Supreme Court.
Right.
You're right.
You just need a simple majority in the House. You get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. You put it doesn't even have to be a Democratic president, just a moderate, progressive president who believes that the court need to be limited somehow in their power.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, telling the rest of us.
Dan, let me get some more callers in here on this, because Paul in Woodinville, Washington wants to pipe up on this. We have just a minute left on the show. Hey, Paul.
Yeah, Tom, the only problem with Dan's suggestion is that we still have the Citizens United, even if we demote the current court and recreate a packed court. And you're right. The thing is, there have been 5 constitutional amendments passed based on 3 Supreme Court decisions. The first one was the 11th Amendment from the 1793 Chisholm versus Georgia, and then, of course, the Dred Scott decision produced the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. And then Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust in 1896 produced the 16th Amendment in 1913. And all of these went very fast. You think the 13th, 14th, and 15th were within 5 years.
Yep.
And of course, the 16th and 17th Amendments passed were both passed in 1913.
Wow. Paul, you are a scholar on this stuff. Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate it. You know more than I do about it, which is one of the cool things about doing this show, is I'm surrounded by some of the smartest minds on earth.